Welcome back, everybody, to Megalithomania, South Africa. Our next speaker is Wayne Herschel, who you saw yesterday do his research about his hidden records BC. Today, we're going to go AD, and we're going to check out his some breakthrough discoveries that he's been saving up for today. So I'm really looking forward to this myself. So please give a warm welcome to Wayne Herschel.
Thanks. Yesterday I showed the star maps of all ancient civilizations that seem to have a common pattern, a pattern that showed the stars all over the globe being important, a certain part of the sky that was important. Now, if this was real, my question is, did the secret follow forward as being the secret of the human origin genome? Okay. The most important stars are Orion and the Pleiades in most of the ancient civilizations. They seem to have the obsession in mainly the Pleiades and the earliest monuments, but there were some that chose Orion as a cosmic signpost to find that star that is marked with a ring around it. Now, the Pleiades is the constellation you see in the bottom left with the number 7 near it, 7 stars. And Orion is the one with the digit 3 near it, which is the 3 belt stars of Orion. Follow the alignment to find this important star. Now, I'm going to show you how that number 3571 is a very ancient sacred number. We have another star that comes into contention here. We were looking at the one on the top right as being the most important, followed by the one on the bottom. But there's a third one in the area of the Pleiades, and it has a movement path that traces from the top of it to underneath it. So that star is listed as TYC 17991061. Those 3 stars seem to be embedded more in the last 2,000 years of ancient traditions and what I believe secret society had some sort of clue about. Yesterday I showed that Tikal, that grouping of yellow pyramids. Hugh mentioned as well, some pyramids were built later and didn't seem to follow a divine plan. The one in purple at the top is one of those that didn't follow the plan, but the yellow ones with the little shape in the middle of the grouping is the earliest, and it makes this triangulation effect between monuments. This is that pattern that I was talking about, and there's an anomaly in the left-hand side of it, just underneath the purple pyramid with a tiny black dot. That is one that seems to mark this third sun that comes into contention. Mars has an extra anomaly for that third sun. You'll see it in the top left-hand corner, just a shadow peeping out. For my book, I kept just to 2 sun-like stars. The moment I brought the third one in, it became very confusing for the readers. So for simplicity, the Mars face and the DNM pyramid were the only 2 that I included in the book, and I left out the third one. But you can see in the top left-hand corner, there is an anomaly that fits. Stonehenge has that same layout pattern where the winter-born Stoke Barrow seem to duplicate the Pleiades. Stonehenge itself is the X that marks the spot. And there's a group at the bottom called the Lake District area where those trees are at the bottom of the picture that seem to be marking that third star, just like that. And Stonehenge, if you look closely in the bottom, the top left of that corner, second ring, there is an anomaly, a long barrow that fits in with the third sun. Babylon, supposed to be the cradle of civilization. The lost temples of Babylon actually fit between this triangulation of 3 ziggurats. Saddam Hussein rebuilt those 3 ziggurats as being his most important monuments, and he actually put big weapons on top of them as well. So those 3 make an amazing equilateral triangle, but what's left of Babylon is very, very hard to make out. There's very little to see. So we won't be able to measure Pleiades correlations there. So we're looking at 3 stars in a triangle position. The Pleiades are shown being in the upright position as a leg of the bull. To the ancient Egyptians, they interpreted this grouping of 7 stars that have got this beautiful blue radiance as being the leg of the bull of Taurus. Right, this is where it starts. Secret society, Freemasonry as a whole started off with some kind of legend about Hiram Abiff, a biblical character the founding of Israel, tied in with Jacob's ladder. That ladder you see coming down from one of those stars is Jacob's ladder. And Jacob was told to build monuments on the ground to mirror the heavens. The three in the heavens make a triangle pointing downwards. The sacred feminine that I think Robert Langdon in the fictitious Da Vinci Code, fictitious, said that was the sacred feminine. And on the ground there's the monuments of the masculine. Well, at the bottom of this ladder there is a Ra symbol. The Ra symbol is a dot and a circle called the circumpunct. Why would that symbol be on the ground zero, marking position with that star? If you look carefully, just underneath that blazing star, they call it, there's a hand and a grail, a symbolic symbol for the Christ story being tied in with this star. And I'd like to suggest that's a very simple indication this is the Bethlehem star and its secret. There's also a key on that ladder. What does the key mean? Very likely to be the key of King Solomon. King Solomon had a secret and he carried a key to unlocking a truth. That is that complete layout plan of that first-degree tracing board, which I think was the secret that Hiram Abiff was murdered for. 3 pillars on the ground matching 3 anomalies in the sky. I believe the checkered board effect on the ground is a very clever way of doing a chronology of 3 different stars when they were founded on this earth. 3 different pillars have 3 different carvings on them. And you can date them, perhaps the one with the least amount of carving on was the most ancient, which is the one closest to us in the picture, going back to the eastern horizon, which is the far one, the pillar that's closest to the star that's got the biggest size is the blazing star. That one has a lot of ornate carving on it, and the Ra symbol is marked on that one, being something tied in with the beginnings of ancient civilization. People in early astronomy built something called a sextant to measure positions of stars. Now, before that, there was a very simple way of measuring stars for the ancients. They believed that when the stars rose on the eastern horizon, they were being reborn. This was the time to measure them on the horizon. Orion rises in anywhere, in fact, north hemisphere and southern hemisphere, with Orion pointing vertical like that. And that's a very neat way. If you're going to measure from Orion's belt to that little star that's got the red hue around it, you'd want to measure how far to measure to that star. In astronomy, it's actually 33 degrees of arc. Is that a coincidence? 33 degrees, a ladder going upwards. That's very close to the Jacob's ladder of perhaps 33 levels, reaching up to the knowledge of that star. And you would be able to use 2 small little goodies here, the right-angled triangle and the dividers, to measure the star. Just 2 little items on a special day. And you can actually measure 33 degrees in the sky with your eye viewing down the calipers. If you can imagine 2 big calipers holding outwards, one level with the horizon, and you need to measure vertically. So that right-angled triangle will just help you measure vertically. So to find the star that's 33 degrees away, it would be that way to do it. 3571. 3 belt stars of Orion through the 5 of Taurus. There are 5 in a V shape, like the Roman V, to the Pleiades generally, because you can't see the small little star marked 1 here. It's too tiny to see. You need binoculars or a telescope. So 3571, Google that number and the word Freemason. See for yourself. From a Masonic apron, I think it generalizes the 2 pillars of the Solomon Temple, Joachim and Boaz. Have a look at those stairs. They're broken into 3 portions. There are first 3 steps, then there are 5, then followed by 7 to get to the secret of that all-seeing eye at the top. And that's what we had there, the 3, 5, 7 combination to get to the 1, which is that all-seeing eye at the top. The most sacred ancient Egyptian monument, I believe, even more importantly, after the Sphinx, would have to be the Egyptian obelisk of Ra. It's in the area of Abasur, and the date of this obelisk, they believe, is 2,500 BC. I don't believe that's likely. I think it's a lot older than that. But these obelisks are built all around the world. They had 2 of them on the Egyptian temples, like the Masonic Joachim and Boaz pillars. In Egypt, they had 2 obelisks on each side of a temple. So it's very similar to the Solomon design. The Vatican and Washington use obelisks. Why? Looking at the as above, so below template, I think this is the ultimate depiction of the as above, so below. 3 suns, as they rise on the east, that's behind the pyramid there. I've just shown the pyramid just for the shape here, but that's how it looks when it rises. And then as below, the pyramid on the ground. See the triangle pointing down and a triangle pointing up. The triangle pointing up is obviously a general symbol for a monument. The Pleiades have that leg shape. I just wanted to show a very close picture of how beautiful it really is under a telescope. There's a lot of debris in this area, cosmic dust. There might have been a supernova here some time ago, because one of them at the bottom, right in the middle on the bottom picture, there's a wisp of nebula coming from it. That could have been a supernova, because we measured yesterday there's a huge X-ray source from that bottom, very tiny little star. Now, in Hebrew history, the Star of David has a secret that ties in with the Pleiades, and this is my theory, and see what you think of that. It's supposed to be a triangle of the heavens merging with the monument on the bottom, and each corner of that of those 6 corners is supposed to be important, with 1 in the middle. It makes 7. So it does have the number 7 and 7 important things associated with the symbol. Yesterday I showed the UFO papyrus, that strange little anomaly on the back of the Sphinx. And we're speaking of the sacred feminine, the womb of Nut. Nut, the sacred personification of all the stars in the heavens. And it's a triangle pointing downwards, when she's standing with the feet on the horizon and the hands touching the western horizon. So look at that pyramid, that triangular shape on the bottom left-hand side, and how the two merge to form that Star of David. And I believe the menorah is another ancient way that people would celebrate 7 celestial lights inside their homes, showing the way to, I believe, that Star of David's secret. So the Star of David is like the Star of Bethlehem, as far as I can see at this stage in research. That's simply it there. As above, so below. Triangles merge. It's the heavens meeting the earth. The $1 bill, the all-seeing eye, is shown in a very unique shaped pyramid. Now, there are 2 seals on a $1 bill. I want to present an overlay of the 2 seals and just see what you get, because they're both circular and they both have an illuminated theme in the top part of the circle. Have a close look at those 2 seals. Isn't it amazing? We have 2 blazing themes at the top part of that seal. Put the 2 together, we get the bottom anomaly. A triangle with 3 stars on the outside of the pyramid, forming that triangle pointing downwards to the monument. And there's actually the words Mason inscribed. If you follow from the letters, it draws out a pattern I've shown on the right-hand side of the screen, M-A-S-O-N. So you don't even have to use the Star of David to form that. It just forms with an overlay. And I think it's showing the secret of the star map is part of the beginnings of ancient secret society. Comparing it in simplicity to that triangle of the Star of David and the Freemason tracing board, you can see that triangulation in the heavens and the monuments on the ground. The Statue of Liberty has 7 rays of light shining from her head. She is a solar deity. Is that a coincidence? 7 beams of light. Remember, the star in that Masonic drawing has 7 rays of light. I think the 7 rays of light is symbolized that it has something to do with the stars that are on the top right-hand side of that Masonic document. You'll see 7 stars around one of those orbs, which I believe is the sun. Looking closely at it again, okay, I think we've covered that one. I'm going to move on to the next slide. The solar trinity is the detail I want to look into now. How can I say that this is a solar trinity? It's almost blasphemy, isn't it? That we would say that this is worshipping suns. My whole understanding of all this ancient rite is they were never ever worshipping our sun. They were worshipping one in the cosmos, near the womb of Nut. Nut gave birth to the star in Taurus. Egyptian tradition has father, mother, and son as being a personification of 3 solar deities. And that's how they showed it on the left. In Sumeria, they did exactly the same thing on the right. Father on the left, son in the middle, and mother on the right. and look at the bull personification of the sun, the one in the middle being the most important one. There's the symbol for the trinity, the sacred trinity of the churches. Is it just a coincidence that it is made out of 3 circles, 3 as 1? Here are some clues. This could be an ancient Templar secret of 3 being linked by serpents. You can see the serpent's heads peeping out of the top 2 orbs, and some Hebrew inscriptions, which I don't really know what it means, and the 2 serpents are holding the label of what this is, and a cosmic puma, which is important to the Incas, a puma head. And see how that has developed to this documentation of one of the earliest Father, Son, Holy Ghost. They've interpreted it with a triangle of 3 orbs in the heavens, the Christ crucifixion beneath the most important dais, Sun in the middle, and the one on the bottom being a 4th that comes into contention, which I believe is our Sun. The traditional interpretation is Father, Spirit, God, and then Son, with the Christ cross in the middle. But there's more to this Christ cross. I'm going to tell you what it is now, and then I'll show you how I can verify that cross that Constantine said he saw in the sky, he's the one responsible for bringing Christianity forward. And he had an intervention with angels that told him the secret of the cross of the sky. Now, if you look at the cross of the Vatican, you'll see it's a square cross, and it's very different. And any theologian will tell you that this is the cross of the sky. It's not the crucifixion cross. However, if it's showing it here with the Christ, I'm pretty sure that the Christ was teaching about his Star of Bethlehem, which I believe was removed. So that's my interpretation of it. Exactly like the ancient maps that we have, a very important one is the Elohim star. There's one before in my book that I call the human origins on the top left. And then the new one that comes into contention is some other beings tied in with that star. So there's just 3 in the sky, 1 on the ground being our sun. So we have 4 important suns. But they were worshipping the Elohim, bright, all-blazing star, the one in the middle. Let's look more into this funny pattern now. Top right-hand corner, you'll see we showed you that 3 orbs connected as a triangle, then the one below it, my interpretation of 3 suns above our sun, then the one at the bottom being with the Christ depiction. Look at that whole shape. Now, to the middle of the bottom, the Kabbalah is based on these orbs with connecting lines. This is a part of the bottom of the Kabbalah that I'm showing here. The grouping of blue dots above the depiction on the bottom in the middle, I believe, is the Pleiades. Now, that's quite a big thing for the Kabbalah. And in the bottom left, you'll see the simple symbolic sign of 7 dots. In that grouping, like this, the Star of David is another way of showing the Pleiades. From this disc in Nebra, it's a German artifact. It shows the Pleiades just as a group of 7 as a cluster. It's a very simple symbol for the Pleiades. And if you look at it closely, that's what I think it is interpreting, that there should be 7 more circles to add to this to complete the Kabbalah. And there they are. If people know the Kabbalah, you'll know this pattern very well. And of course, it joins one against the other, and it speaks about human traits and teachings. But they've brought that pattern of the secret of the stars forward. Getting back to the pyramids of Egypt. Actually, the Egypt area, there's a tomb in Deir el-Bahari. That's a place where the Hatshepsut temple is. There's a tomb with the ultimate star map in it. So going down this tomb, you'll see this pattern. And it has a star at the top middle part of the picture, that tiny little red dot, and a beam of light coming down from it. That is something we've just seen, haven't we? The ladder going up to a star from the Freemason document. A dot with a circle, but it's so tiny, it cannot possibly be our sun because it's shown with stars. The leg of the bull of Taurus is connected to it. This is something you see at night. I believe it's the Pleiades and that star, and Orion is personified by Horus there with a weird rod on his shoulder. Now, you don't spear fish like that, you don't spear an animal like that, but you can use it as a pointer to show direction to something. The solar disk, let's see more on that. So it's sitting in the middle of the image with a beam of light coming down from it. I think it is simply saying that. Orion lines up with this leg, and then you follow the leg to that star, beam of light coming down. That's an amazing star map in Egypt. So we have those 2 already. One in Egypt, one matching the Freemason star map, with the Ra symbol being in Egypt, and on the bottom of the ladder we see the Ra symbol at the bottom of the ladder. The Key of Solomon story is something that I really, when I first got into it, I realized I was stepping on toes, because it's a book called the Clavicula Solomus that holds the earliest records of King Solomon. It's associated with witchcraft and putting spells on people and demons and terrible things. It's quite likely something sacred was put in this book, and they used demonology around it so that the people, the elite of ages past, could take action with people holding that manuscript and burn them as witches. Now, I'm holding that parchment. It's a cipher. It's in the British Library. You can source it online as well. Two, call them cipher puzzles. I think Dan Brown was very interested in this at one stage. He said his next book was going to be called Solomon Key, and nothing happened. It shows you a cross of the churches on the left in that circle with a lot of Hebrew and Aramaic writing. And the one on the right is a puzzle. Now, being with an astronomy background as an amateur astronomer, when you join stars with little lines that look like little lollipops, you're actually defining a constellation. So that puzzle is defining one of the constellations that is important. But what attracted me to this in the beginning was that funny X at the 10 o'clock position in the larger circle. It looks like, to me, Orion. And I want to explore that further. The middle part of it, sorry, let me just go back one. The middle part of it has a star and a beam of light down from it. This is now my third case of a star with a beam of light. Look closely at what's around that star. What are those four round things? Well, we'll have to look into that, see if there's any kind of explanation for that. So there are my three cases so far. One in ancient Egypt, one the ancient Freemasons, and the right one, an ancient Hebrew secret that has been locked away as being forbidden. Looking at the stars of Orion, I'm going to propose now that Orion is the sacred cross of the churches. Now, that's one heck of a thing to say, and I must have a lot of backup to prove such a thing. Now, you're going to see the probability that this is the cross that Constantine saw. His whole army saw it. He was told to make this pattern on his shield, and he'll be successful going forward. I don't believe the angels told him to go and kill those tribes across the side that were not chosen. I think that has been twisted. I think it was just a way that he would be successful with his way forward, teaching the story about this cross. And the cross being formed by those four outer stars. I'll draw it for you in a minute. And his symbol that he simplified from that was the pointer of Orion as a P with an arrow, and a cross being just that simple X. And this is the sign that he associated for Christ. Simple as that. But we have a double cross here because Orion's belt is one portion of a cross going through the middle of it. And there's the sword of Orion, which is that little grouping of four nebulas on the left, and the head of Orion, which is the one on the far right. Now look at that pattern very closely. I believe that is the key in unlocking Solomon's puzzle. Those two circles you saw on a parchment, the one on the left and the bottom right of the picture, the two circles, the blue illuminated cross with the yellow ring, is the key. That, I believe, is Solomon's key, the cross of the churches that is his secret to unlocking the meaning of a star map in his cipher puzzle. And if you look closely at the little Orion pink anomaly that he drew in this puzzle, it's got nebulas shown for the sword of Orion and the head of Orion. And of course, those blue symbols on the bottom are how that cross has evolved through the churches. So the P as well, in the star formation itself, I've drawn a little P with an arrow. It's following those three belt stars of Orion to find the Bethlehem star. That's that symbol there. Now you can see the simplicity of it. Right, I'm going to do an animation now. We're going to solve this puzzle. Star in the middle. Orion has the three belt stars aligning with the star in the middle. I believe we have the two suns on each side of it. This is probably depiction of the ecliptic, the path of the sun, that this star will be found just beneath the ecliptic. There's a dotted line in the middle from left to right. And Orion has an alignment. But look at the position of Orion. They've shown Orion in the 10 o'clock position in the circle. There must be reason for it being positioned in that point. If you look at the position of Orion to match this puzzle, that only happens when Orion is in the west. As it's about to set on the horizon, At the exact point where I've shown where there's a question mark on the horizon is when that angle matches with Orion. So there's something important on the horizon being born where that question mark is in the west. Okay, it's setting in the west. That's not really being born, but there's something on that western horizon that is being depicted in that puzzle. Looking at Rome. I'm using Rome as the template. Just that anywhere in Europe this will work. You can work in Washington, anywhere else in the northern hemisphere. You can measure this very accurately. I want to find out what is on the eastern horizon. I've got the western horizon solution, and I believe it's Orion. Now, to complete this, the coordinates for the star, we need to find what's in the east. Let's look closely at the proof of the ecliptic. 3 stars in a row I've mentioned. Let's expand it a bit so you can see it as a line from sunset to sunrise, sunrise to sunset. That's what we've really got. This is a star map. It's showing now west and east orientation and a horizon. The Akhet symbol for the sun on a horizon is that symbol that you see at the bottom. And we've got 2 of them, so we have 2 on the horizon. That is, to me, proof of these symbols being used are really ancient and similar to Egyptian. We can measure the angle X, where the Orion constellation meets the ecliptic as well. And that is pretty accurate. When we get to our conclusion, we will be measuring that. So we need the eastern horizon now. We've got west. Let's solve what coordinates we can get for the eastern coordinates. We need that angle, question mark. This is my animation to show you that puzzle being pieced together. There it is on its own as a ring. It looks something like Stargate. I wouldn't be surprised if the film Stargate was inspired by these star constellations on the outer edge as the address that they dial up. Maybe these folks know a little bit more than they care to say. Orion aligns right across the whole puzzle ring, so we're going to start with that alignment on the far side of the ring. And take that piece and its orientation. Note, I'm not going to change the orientation of it and place it in the middle. Let's follow anti-clockwise, another piece of the puzzle. Let's put that next piece above it into position and keep going. And then we get to the end bit before Orion. That is one part of it. Now, we have Orion being in that gap, so the rest of these puzzles to fit. We can't join a line with a line. A line needs to join with a star. You can't, in this puzzle, to make it work, this line, this puzzle piece must touch a star. Let's put it in the middle one for an experiment. Carry on below it, just like we're taking the second line where the star touches that line, and then we just put the final one that didn't have a line at all as a full stop. So that's quite a nifty little piece. That one that had no line seals that picture. What is that picture? Let's have a closer look at that. If that is a constellation that we can measure. The Pleiades. And you'll notice that it's highlighting one that is a very tiny star that the Mars star map showed yesterday as 8 stars being important. We have 8 stars in that picture. And that's pretty important, that they've shown one that might have been a bright star once. That's how old this is. And it is now supernovaed, and we don't have much left of it. Look at the orientation of those stars. So we take Orion out of the puzzle, which we've solved. Orion, we've got the western. We need to know the eastern. The Pleiades are in that exact orientation when it's that distance off the horizon. So that exact distance, the Pleiades are in the sky. We have the eastern measurement. So something important fits for both of them in that position. Both Orion and the Pleiades have the same X that marks the spot, one on the east and one on the west. What are the odds of that? And it's that little star with 4 orbs around it. What are the 4 orbs? If we're looking for life out there in the universe, our human ancestors, surely we're looking for life as in worlds, flesh and blood life. Our ancestors came from this place in Taurus. That's why they worship the bull. They wouldn't worship a silly animal. It must have some significant importance, personification in the sky. So that is the complete story of that puzzle. Looking closely at those little 4 dots, 4 planets, solving the Solomon key. So that's my theory, and see what you think of that. But there's more. Right, looking back at those stars, now you can see the whole layout making a lot more sense. We're seeing the 3 kings as being the 3 stars of Orion. How can I say such a thing? 3 kings now being the name of those 3 stars. Let's see if we can find proof of it. Well, if you Google the words 3 kings Freemason, I think you'll find your answer. It's in a document by a famous historical Freemason who said that they measured and called the 3 stars of Orion the 3 kings. And if you take the Gospel of Matthew from one of the earliest biblical texts and compare your earlier sources, you get something like this. The three wise magi, the three kings, follow from the east. That follow, it's an alignment being born on the east. They're not following a star that moves, because stars can't move. That follow alignment from the east to find the star associated with the place of the birth of Christ. That Bethlehem star is the Christ star, and it's a birth star of humanity being associated with this story of Christ. Now here it gets really interesting. I found quite recently a sacred Bible, and this Bible has this weird pattern on it, which I believe is Solomon's key. Obviously you can see a similarity in the pattern, and it turned out that the origin that inspired this pattern on the Bible was a Masonic based Bible. I'm going to show you the front cover and you can decide for yourself. Now, if this really is the cross of Orion, why hasn't humanity been told about the star secret? There it is. I don't know if you can see the close-up detail, but if you really strain your eyes, in the middle left-hand side of that book, you'll see a little ladder going up to the heavens. There's 7 stars in that tiny little depiction in the heavens. There are Masonic symbols all over this cover, but the most important thing to me was this, I believe, is the Orion constellation on the cover of the Bible. And that's exactly that pattern there. This is one of the earliest sources, that piece in the middle made of 3 orbs blending together in the cross. Here's another one that actually shows the head portion. There's an extra line coming out of the cross. Now, Orion has the area shaded green where it goes towards the head of Orion, and it is that exact shape. This is a Bible that has locking portions on it, so maybe the locking aspect of it is symbolic as well, but I think it might just be a coincidence. Recently, I saw this area in I think it's Italy. Yeah, in Italy, there's an ancient priory. Not that ancient, obviously, in the last 2,000 years. They built a priory that has some work by a famous artist, Perugino. And he shows a depiction of the God figure with a sun behind him, with cherubim, which we need to know what are cherubim. Now, looking up at the roof, that's why the people at the top are upside down. You're looking up at a roof, so some people are going to be upside down. On the bottom left-hand side of the picture, you'll see there's a man with a sword with a bright star on it. This is one of the bright stars of the Pleiades. I'll show you a close-up of some of the detail, but that sun behind the back there has 7 small little stars in between each cherubim. The detail is too tiny to show, but between each little cherubim are 6 stars, and the 7th one is at the bottom of that cloud. If I told you the cloud that this God figure is sitting on has on its right-hand portion a little piece of what is in the cloud. I've made that available online. You'll see that it's the Ezekiel wheel. It's a wheel that he's sitting on inside that cloud, and a little piece is peeping out of the cloud, and the initiate would look for that. It has portholes on the edge of the wheel, the eyes of Ezekiel's wheel around the edge of that disc. Now look at the book of the person on the left-hand side of the screen is holding that book with Orion on it, and he's pointing up to his secret of the star where the God figure is standing, and the woman looks very upset about it. She's looking pretty disappointed. Her book has just a cross on it. It doesn't have the Orion piece in it. So I'm suggesting that there are 2 books, one for people that were important, and one that didn't have this exact symbol on it for commoners, us. That is that complete depiction. You'll notice as well a man holding, I believe it's a world. He's holding an orb. Look back at it again. This chap, and I've looked closely at that depiction of a world. It isn't our Earth. It's some weird shaping clouds on it. You can't see details of continents, but it's a man holding the world. He's got a star behind him with 7 next to it, so it's exactly that. Now, I've shown what I believe cherubim are. This is a very controversial subject. Ask any theologian of a cherubim definition, he'd have to tell you it's a childlike entity that was angelic, not human. I believe it's the grey entity, but that's another whole story. But look at the basics here. Pleiades on top, the sun, deity, sun blazing, a creator, godish figure. Let's call it our ancestor father, holding a world, and the sacred cross was in that picture, which I left out. The sacred cross is what the Godfather on the land. It's the same face of the man that's in the sun, by the way. You see the man holding the cross in the top part of the picture? And that would be the Christ. And the Christ is holding something as well, and you'll see what he's holding. That's the picture of that's been chopped off. The man with his head actually chopped off here is actually the Christ figure. He is holding that Orion book. Now look to the right of the picture. There's a very despondent-looking and he's not very despondent. There's a man pointing to a dove. The dove whispered in his ear the secret of the book that he holds, and a bishop is looking and questioning. He has the book and he knows the secret. But just by looking at facial expressions of this artist, where somebody's head is sticking through the picture here, the man in the middle there is probably a bishop or even a pope. Very despondent face. If you told the guy that you're going to take away his whole home and living abode, you'd probably have that look on his face, wouldn't he? He is holding the book that doesn't have Orion's belt, whereas the others here trying to console him are those that know the secret. These are purely my interpretations, very, very controversial, but see how it develops. Now, isn't it weird that the Christ figure, Yeshua, had a disc behind his head? Like the Egyptians had the sun disk on their heads, they put a disc behind the Christ. Now, if ever there was a grail depiction, remember a grail can be two things. A grail is the ancient word for an eating dish or a goblet. It could be both. I believe there was once a gold plate that had a star map on it. And it's something that the Christ gave to Judas, and he was murdered, and the story was missing. So the secret of the Grail was lost. But that cross depiction, you'll find it in the Maya. Look closely at the Maya on the left. It's hard to see the detail, but there are 3 round dots beneath the part in the middle that line up with one Ra symbol, tiny little dot in that plate above the center part. So the Maya had that exact same symbol of the cross. Sumerians, they showed depictions of double crosses. The African Chokri tribe, Rome, the denarii coins full of the sacred cross showing stars with it. And I want to look closely at the dish behind the head of the Christ. And I found the clue to what was depicted behind Christ in a manuscript called the Voynich manuscript. This is a very weird manuscript written in writing. It looks like Leonardo da Vinci's backward writing. But there's one picture in there where it shows you that center part with a face and a sacred cross and a lot of detail. Before I move on to show you what it means, this picture in the top left is Westminster Cathedral's cross, the Baal cross and the monuments of Baal, Templar cross on the bottom right with the solar trinity depiction symbols in it, and we have an Inca cross with a face in the middle. That face is very important to show life from a sun star. Think of when you were children drawing a sun. Why did they teach us to put a face in it? Think about that. Where did that come from? Is it so old that we just carry it forward? Close-up of the Voynich manuscript document. It's the face in the middle, but look to the left of it. You'll see a grouping of 7 stars and a path going to it. Now, I've put all those stars together on a computer program, and you'll see all those constellations in those 4 areas, and the crosses of 2 galaxies make the middle part of dense stars. So that's a very long story on its own. It's online. That is the Sangreal. I think of the words Grail. They said it was holy bloodline. But taking back the original meaning of Sangreal, it could also mean sacred lineage. What if the sacred lineage is all of humanity? Do you think there'd be some religious groups that would be upset with that if all of humanity are equal and chosen? Question that, because there's something here that is obviously upsetting certain people because my book is being inundated with sabotage. Let's have a look at Rome. This is the picture where the Pope looks down from his great announcing. He looks down a causeway. That causeway faces east. Why? Why are they having this eastern causeway? What is that round building at the bottom of the causeway? That's the Temple Sant'Angelo. In Da Vinci Code, the last part of, I think it was Angels and Demons, there's an archive of the Vatican there. And in that archive, they've got some secret manuscripts. Looking at the beginning of Rome, it had bull worship to start with. What is bull worship? Think of Taurus as the cosmic bull. The Mithras religion, that funny picture of a man in blue with a red cape. He's got 7 stars on his back cape, and he is doing something to a bull. He's severing off one of the legs of the bull. And that's exactly the Egyptian tradition, that the leg of Taurus was severed and set loose in the sky. The top part of that picture is an Egyptian a coffin lid inscription that is showing the 7 stars filled in that I showed yesterday. So is it possible that this whole story has carried forward to Rome? Looking at the earliest ancient human depictions in Rome, you'd have to, in Italy, this is not actually in Rome, this is generally somewhere in Italy called Valcamonica. A lot of people might recognize the ancient alien in the bottom picture. There's 2 of them that are together as well. This is a picture of one of them on a rock all by itself with this funny butterfly flying above it with a arrow pointing from the 3 stars in a row. Now, Orion can fit that depiction very, very neatly, and it's showing to the place of these ancient aliens, and this is the flying alien, by the way. Instead of showing birds' wings to teach his flight, bent knees, pointed toes, this guy's in the air, and he's wearing a helmet. I believe that is the cross of Orion being depicted on that ancient rock carving that is way, way thousands of years older than the Christ story. There's ancient manuscripts all over the world that I'm getting access to that show Latin stories and depictions of Constantine's cross. This is one of them. The top part of that book, you'll see the Lamb of God standing on the Mount Sion, a mound, a monument on the ground, and there's a sun and a moon, according to tradition. Forget the sun and the moon. This is a star that is like our sun and a world in crescent at the top. That is making a lot more sense when you look at the Sumerian depictions, because they show 2 or 3 crescents. But that cross is made out of the stars of Orion. So without going into too much detail of what it all means there, I'll put that online as well. Looking at the 3 now, Orion as that funny shape, fitting that template. You can draw that exact pattern to make that weird flying butterfly. And the pointing part is the Orion's belt pointing to this man, suggesting that his area in space is where you use the cosmic signpost to find the ancestors of humanity. Right, the Rosicrucian cross. Look at the shape of the Rosicrucian cross. Another ancient secret society. It's exactly that double cross with the star in the middle and 3 orbs being put together. The Codex Gigas. They did a documentary recently on, I think it was History Channel, showing the secret of the Codex Gigas. Look at the picture in the middle. That's most likely the sacred cross as Orion, and then a key depiction beneath it, explaining that it's following as a key, that this Orion is the key perhaps of Solomon. If you Google Earth, Italy, and look at the Vatican, isn't it weird, that shape that is outlined there? And one of the main characters of the Basilica is St. Peter. It was built to commemorate St. Peter. He was probably involved with the building design even. He's holding a key in his left hand and pointing down that causeway to a star, and that is where the Castel San Angelo is. Pretty unique that it looks like a key shape, isn't it? That it's Orion. And look, where would Orion be here? Look closely at that circle of the piazza. You have the cross and a cross. That is Orion, and it's following through to find the star. It was a star castle that had 5 points. The key on that ladder now is suggesting that is Orion lining up vertically to that star. Looking at Rome from above, Rome was chosen for 7 hills, forgotten. Why 7 hills? Why would they want to build this whole layout area? Well, it's a star map. Exactly what I said before. This is all as above, so below. Look at that whole layout, the triangulation of the 3, the biggest star being the X that marks the spot, the Vatican Piazza with the Orion constellation. That's what we have as the stars. It's exactly that star map again. Obviously, the 7 hills are really big, so it's out of proportion expectedly, but everything else is in proportion. It's the same layout on the Freemason board, Pleiades in the right position, vertically as it's east. You see the letter E on top of that drawing? This is a map. It's got north, south, west, and east shown. The viewer is standing and looking at a window, looking east. Looking at Rome from where the Pope does his speech, he's Orbi Orbi, Christmas Eve. What is he looking at rising in the heavens? Lo and behold, the solar trinity. Those 3 obelisks on the ground that you could see in the ancient times, you won't see today because buildings cover them completely. They're very exaggerated here. But that map is depicted pretty much the same as the Freemason document original. And Orion rising as well. Orion would be the second rising, and that is the part that is showing the way to those 3 in the sky. Let's look at the obelisk. Why is the Christmas tree in Washington, D.C. placed below the obelisk? Think about that. Getting back to our patterns of the solar disk, we've looked at that being the beam of light. Stonehenge, if you look at Stonehenge as an overlay, there are 4 orbital odds that are around that star that would signify planets if Stonehenge is a star map. I would like to throw the Christmas tree into those 3 beams of light. The Yule tree has an origin of a star and a tree chosen to depict a beam of light coming down from it. That is pre-Christian, Sol Invictus, and there's 4 that have that beam of light. That is why the Christmas tree is at the bottom of the obelisk. The obelisk is the X that marks the spot where the Ra symbol is, and the tree together. Now, all those people singing carols at the bottom on Christmas Eve, do you think they know what that means? That the 2 are put together that depict the same meaning. Looking at Stonehenge and the Solomon Key. What if I told you Stonehenge is the Solomon Key? That sounds a bit far-fetched, eh? Well, look at the green, the two bands, the two outer rings. There's a square in the middle with 4 angular portions. That is what Stonehenge is. And Stonehenge is measuring a star as well. If you measure the moonrise and sunsets and sunrises, it depicts a 5-pointed star and a Da Vinci man in it as well. So the two are exactly the same. Is that a coincidence? All from that ancient document. So we've got the whole story of Rome fitting in with it. There's the whole lot together, Orion and the Pleiades all at one shot. But it's mainly those 3 suns, and the biggest sun being in line with the Castel Sant'Angelo star fortress, where in Dan Brown's story, that sacred monument, the sacred archive is the star fortress, and there's a little line you'll see leading to it from the Pope's secret direction to get to that archive where only he can have access to it. Mr. Pope, what are you wearing? A little red cross on his ribbon around the side. It has a gold lapel. It looks like the whole of the Vatican City for the Basilica as a pointer. Washington, D.C. has exactly the same plan. Looking at the layout of the Roslyn and Arlington area, leg of the bull, there's the picture of the Washington Monument with the Ra symbol beneath it, and the Pentagon at the bottom. That's pretty much what we have on Mars. Look at the shape of the Mars pyramid. And of course, the Mars face fits where that obelisk is. Lalibela has that exact same layout plan, a leg of the bull, just like in Washington. In Iran, a giant mountain that was carved into that leg shape, and a tep made into what I believe is the face monument. That's all that's left of it, the Mars face beneath it as a comparison. They even have a 5-pointed star-type shape like on Mars. But the Pentagon has a north pointer. It is pointing north. Mars has that exact same north pointer, so it's a star map. Sol Invictus. You can compare the 33 degrees now with that main pillar. That is pretty much what Washington depicts. It's choosing just the one pillar out of the 3. 4th of July. The sun rises at the only time with Orion together. Is that a coincidence that they chose the 4th of July to fight the last great Crusader battle? But they lost, by the way, so it couldn't have been that important. The stars can't make you win battles. The meaning of that obelisk is actually inside it. This is the Washington Monument. It has a star inside a sun and wings and serpents coming out of it. This is an Egyptian symbol. So inside the Washington obelisk, you have the title for it. It's marking a Hebrew star. And it's also marking it on a flying disc with cosmic serpents. And it's flying because it's got birds' wings on it. Washington knew the secret. And I believe it ended there with the Freemason tradition because they started looking at the blazing star being Sirius, following Orion's belt in the opposite direction away from Taurus. I believe that was when perhaps Freemasonry was thought to be expanding too quickly and too fast, that the real secret need to be hidden. Just a theory. Right, we're getting to the best part of the whole thing, the roundup. That's the face on Mars. You can just make out the eye position on it, very slightly in the shadow there. That monument, if I told you, which is on Mars, is on the borders of Israel. I only found this 3 days ago. I was following the ancient Bible, and one of the 300-year-old versions, I think it's the Masonic one, was speaking about Jacob, spoke of this land where he had this ladder event with the angels as being the place of the face of God. Now that just rang off bells in my head, knowing, okay, I'm looking for monuments. This place looked like the face of God. What are the chances if I go Google Earth, if there's more coordinates given? Now, in this text, it mentions 3 more things. It was an area called Lutz. That didn't come up on Google, but it was right next to Sukkoth, S-U-C-C-O-T-H. Now, if you Google Earth that, you've got a hit. Now, the last coordinate that it gave in the text was it's on the eastern bank of the Jordan. So all I had to do was go to Sukkoth and look where it meets the eastern bank of Jordan. What do you get? When I saw this, the hair stood up on my arms, and I called my partner Birgit in. I said, for goodness sakes, just come look. Remember I told you I was looking for that face? I've Google Earthed it. Look what's looking back at me at the exact point in Sukkoth. This is a Bronze Age mound of unknown significance. It's called Deir Allah, D-E-I-R-A-L-L-A. The meaning of it is actually the place of or temple, and Allah could be a lot of things. God in some Eastern tradition. Allah could also be mother. If you go back even earlier into Aramaic and that origin, it's like a mother goddess type thing. But I'm more interested in the name that the spoken word in Hebrew for the place, the face of God. In the Jacob's text, it said the place was called Peniel. On the forehead of the Mars monument is a little pyramid. And in my book, I specified that that tiny little pyramid on the forehead is marking where that star fits, symbolic of the pineal gland, the spiritual teaching of our third eye. And this monument you'll see as well is actually a real eye peeping through some of the detail. I'm going to show you, okay, it's the same sort of pattern. There's your Jacob's ladder. That is the whole story of this Jacob's ladder fitting on the ground in Israel, being that monument. So I'm really touching a sensitive subject here. Is there an eye on the left-hand side? Look carefully on the top part of it. You'll see a bit of an eye shape still visible. They've built a bit of a monument on it. It was definitely a monument built on it some time ago, but that has perished as well. But it's exactly the same characteristics as the Mars face on the right-hand side of the mound. You can see even the hairline being slightly visible as well. If you look to the left of this monument, I'm looking for my star map. There's another mound in that highlighted green area that I believe is the leg of the bull, just like the Iran monument. And they built that with one of the earliest settlements were built on it. So you're not going to find much there, but it's slightly leaving traces of the leg of the bull. Now, let's look at secret society and little oopses that they've made. This is the face on Mars in a comic book, that people are on Mars and they're climbing this face monument. There's your little piece in the middle of the forehead marking the pineal gland, big monument. This is done in 1958. The first Mars probes were way after that. Who knew about this face on Mars? How many other people knew the secret? This was a cartoonist showing who knew a little bit of something. Well, does anybody know Arthur C. Clarke? He did a book as well, same year. Actually, it was probably a year later. This is on Mars, and it's a face facing upwards. What did Arthur really know? That's my question. It's on a book that was printed long before we knew anything about face monuments, period. Sumerian scroll seals showing Pleiades and Orion obsessions. There are plenty of them. So the most important part is the man standing in the disk that flies. That is the Elohim. Elo is a plural name, as we've seen from earlier talks. Elo is actually people in ancient Hebrew, and Him is heavens, people from the heavens. This is not God, folks. I'm sorry we might have worshipped these people that came down teaching us. Pretty inspiring, but they were teaching of another place. Their place of God was a place of light at the center of the universe. That's a whole different story. Looking at the sickle crescent, and that's a weird shape in that area that I've marked out. And there's Pleiades, top left-hand corner of this Persian monument. I'm going to just rush through this one. We've run out of time. On my website, I've shown the full analysis of Ezekiel's flying wheels. The part that was changed in the biblical text is the word highlighted as both. They made an intersecting wheel in new Bibles. Who had the right to do that? Go back to the earliest Bibles, you'll see it was a flying wheel. Both were spinning inside each other. It is that depiction. And there's so funny faces on this cherubim. Look at the picture on the top right. There's a helmet design that was inspired by the bottom picture, which is supposed to be in Uzbekistan. They show a multi-faced alien monster and a little flying disc as a cave drawing. So there's a way to depict four faces according to the tradition of this cherubim having four faces by looking at a bird-headed god as a helmet, an eagle, a man, an ox, and a lion. Would you believe that in Turkey just recently, they spotted a UFO on video? I've got a link to it on my Facebook page, where this thing radiated some weird green light above this flying disc. And you can see the shape of it quite neatly in three different frames that I've extracted. Exactly like the Egyptian depiction I showed yesterday, a disc radiating green light. One of those bars of pointy bits radiating from it was green. And there's your typical UFO, Pleiadian UFO phenomenon. People have claimed they've met people that came from the Pleiades. It's that exact same typical UFO craft, if you want to call it, with three legs being depicted on the back of the Sphinx. So we've seen a UFO recently that fits that exact depiction in motion. The sickle crescent now, I want to just go through. The moon on the left will never, ever get the shape of the sickle crescent. So when you see a sickle crescent depiction, the Göbekli Tepe has a picture of a sickle crescent as well that Andrew Collins showed yesterday. And he also saw with it was a bull depiction and an H. Now, the H with a little oval part in the middle is probably another depiction of Orion with that. This is probably going to turn out to be another star map. We'll wait and see. But the sickle crescent is showing a world not associated with ours. This is one near a sun. And the coins, the denarii, the Roman coins that show a lot of detail of stars and crescents. But look at that bottom right one. It's I think I've got the next picture closer. You can look on above the horses' heads are 7 stars shown as a fish. The Christ symbol and the fish. Think about that. Look at the bottom. Rising on the horizon is the sacred cross. The Christ was associated with that symbol as well of the fish. It's on a coin. They didn't make that up. Other weird coins. What is that? This is Ezekiel's wheel. Very good depiction. 600 years old. It's very well known on the internet. Just type in UFO coin. Here's another one you'll find as well. Different areas. It's only about 400 years old. A lot of people, this could be symbolic of Constantine and his army looking at what really came down. Who can say? Nobody knows. These are just lost coins. 3 traditions of religion carry 3 parts of the star map. The Christian cross is the top left of Orion. The crescent, well, we all know the crescent and the star is. The bottom part, the Hebrew carry the secret of the Star of David, which is the middle part, but finding it from the Star of David being the 7 stars of the Pleiades, the menorah. Why is all 3 different religions making it look different to the other? And I'll tell you one simple reason for it. To be prosperous in the old times, you need to conquer and pillage and rape and take people for slavery. You can't have the same story for that. You can't go and kill people across the border if they are also sacred and chosen, can you? The time to change. We're still fighting wars, would you believe, today for that and resources. So maybe they need to relook at things a little bit clearer for the spiritual aspects of what we think is a holy war. My big twist to the story, I'm rounding up now. Yesterday I said I'd tell you today. These monuments were built massive all over the world. Why so massive? What's the big deal? Well, if they wanted to leave a message for us, they could have just written it on all the walls. They did in some cases, but it was all encoded some weird way. This grand message is facing the sky. This message was never intended for us. Some people out there in the cosmos with a very powerful telescope, probably 20 times the power of the Hubble telescope, will be able to look into our world and see these monument patterns from the messages that are encoded, which I show in my book. There's 3 of them that are repeating this exact same message. So with 3 of them doing it, it's more than a coincidence, that are showing that it is the human genome associated, the Da Vinci man, depiction, Petruvian man, depicted within these monuments as well. And it's our ancestors. Now, if there's aliens out there looking at this, are they recognizing this as being their lineage? Are they going to come back? Who knows? And that's where I'd like to leave it, folks. I hope I've inspired you. Thanks.